its season having been extended even before it opened, and a powerful new version of Mongrels is currently playing at the Wharf for the Sydney Theatre Company.
Don't be such an ingenue.
It's the hardest scene.
Then it's the one that they'll want. There'll be competition. You'll be stretched. I'll try it again.
You're a wicked man. Oh, hello, Greg. You shouldn't have done it. 2 weeks on Hayman Island and he sends about you hidden in a bunch of dahlias. Nobody's ever done anything like this for me.
Nobody's ever given me one of their organs. Not on a permanent basis. I assume it's not just a loan, Dal.
Oh, stop it. We'll need zinc cream and big hats in it for our skin.
Darling, I thought you might like to go with Marge.
Oh, you need a break, love.
I won't have time. I feel a song coming on. Well, a new play. It's something contemporary and a long way from home.
Is it? Already?
No, this is birth play.
Don't tell me he's actually written something. More likely pinched it like everything else.
It's actually very good.
I'll take your word for it.
O'Hara's made it better. He's helping me with my auditions.
Well, don't you work him too hard. Someone should take him away on a holiday.
Nick, welcome to Dialogue.
Thanks, Susie.
As we just saw in that scene from Mongrels, it can be an extremely funny play, and in fact, the Tony Sheldon character, the one in the bed, uses humour as a kind of protection and defence. But it's also quite a dark play, and in fact darker in this new version than the one before. Why is that, do you think?
Why is it dark, or why is it darker?
Why is it darker?
I don't know that it is. I can't tell that. But it's certainly concerned with some pretty strong ideas about survival and how people survive and how artists survive. I think there's also some goodness in the play, I hope so.
Oh, yes.
But I think we set out to explore the notion of mongrels fighting over a very small piece of turf, and that necessarily brings out the fighter in people and perhaps some of the uglier aspects of our experience.
It's a sort of battle between two playwrights for people who haven't yet had a chance to see it, isn't it? And one of whom is particularly aggressive, has been released from prison, and the other, Tony Sheldon, whom we saw in the bed, who uses rather sort of, well, extremely funny camp wit and humour to deal with it, but he's nonetheless quite as tough as...
Indeed. But I think the disturbance in the play is the entry of the ex-prison playwright, the character Burke, played by John Howard.
Good, isn't it? What? The view, what do you think? The play?
It's strong writing.
How strong? What?
It's very good.
You want it?
I like the death scene particularly. It's very moving.
Do you know I've only seen one play in my life? Some packet tongue supporters, Charlie Dance. Talk about strong and moving. In my play, when a bloke puts on a frock, he gets something for his trouble. Something strong and moving.
That's a great thing.
I think that he operates as a kind of catalyst for everybody, that people are behaving at a level of politeness and acceptable behaviour. And I think he brings into the world not only his own ferocity, but also evokes from them levels of feral behaviour that they mightn't have thought themselves capable of.
Yes, they certainly do indulge in a bit of feral behaviour, don't they? Unlike a lot of Australian playwrights, probably unlike most Australian playwrights, you actually have reworked many of your plays. I know some of them more than once.
Mm.
Now, when you go back to a play, obviously you have the first production in your head, but do you also take into account critical response or things that colleagues have said, or do you ignore all that?
I take it all in, but I'm particularly concerned about the response of an audience. And there's something that happens over a season when a play is done that it shifts slightly. It becomes a different organism after it's met the public, and after all, they are the reason we do plays. And you learn from their response. You also learn, I think, from the advice of the actors and the director, and because that advice and that guidance is so important to me, I often don't have a chance to take it on board until the production is finished. And then if the play is lucky enough to be done again, I can assimilate that and put it into a new version.
Hey, where's the rest of you? Where's Gordo? Gordo joined the army, mate.
That makes me feel heat safe. Spider's still around, eh? And was her?
Who's this?
It's Toby. Ackland.
Toby?
No one's called Toby.
I am. You got a problem with that? Black Rock for the blackos, that's the way it's always been, eh?
That's all right, Rico.
Now, Black Rock, which is now a film, actually began life, well, not even as the play Black Rock, but one step back from that as a community theatre project. It has a rather disturbing but fascinating history. Would you like to tell us about the genesis of that? Because I think that's very interesting.
Black Rock began life as a theatre and education play for Freewheels in Newcastle, who commissioned it. And it was called The Property of the Clan, a quite different play for 4 actors who could perform in a classroom. And when the Sydney Theatre Company wanted to develop the material, they wanted it to have some kind of communal and social life. And rather than buffing up the old play, I decided to write a new play which used some of the characters and the principal theme, which is an exploration of male sexuality, male sexual violence, adolescent male sexual violence, and the way in which young men connect with young women and with the other women in their lives. It was initially based on the rape and murder of Lee in Stockton in Newcastle in 1989. But the moment that those ideas took form on the stage, the play became not a dramatisation of any kind of historical event, but of the forces that can lead to such events, but also the responses of a group of ordinary kids to such an event. And I think that the play connects with audiences not because it's about the psychopathology of the rapist, but about a society in which sexual violence is constantly an issue.
And it also brings out that way in which people don't quite know how to respond.
Well, the way in which none of us have the means to communicate feeling to each other, and particularly young people, and I think particularly young men, boys, are not given either the access to the expression of feeling, particularly with older men, with their fathers, and with male figures in their lives, and don't learn a way of communicating with women.
Well, come on, man. How is it? Oh, hey, babe.
You are so out of it, Toby.
Go home, Rachel.
I want to find Jared that said he was down here somewhere.
No, he's not. Look, get out of here. Go home, Rachel. Oh.
Now, about 10 years, I think, ago, you experienced what I think you described as a suicidal depression. Now, was that triggered by this kind of thing in general? Was it a crisis in your working life, or was it simply an overflowing of kind of dammed up, old griefs, I suppose?
One from column A, one from column B. I think it's the kind of experience that many people go through. I don't think that it was in any way uncommon. It hit me in my middle 30s, which is also a very common experience for a lot of people, and certainly for a lot of artists. I don't think it was to do with work. I don't think it was to do with professional issues, although I was in the professional doldrums. But it was to do, I think, with coming to terms with my own inability to express a lot of feeling and a lot of darker stuff, which is interesting that you know, we've talked about Mongrels, and I think that in a way that a play like that is the flushing out of a lot of dark corners. But I think whatever the depression was, whatever that sustained episode was simply the culmination of a lot of stuff that hadn't been dealt with, and which suddenly demanded to be dealt with. Yeah. And it's still being dealt with.
Yes, I was going to say that.
I don't want to present myself as being any kind of graduate of any program. I'm still wrestling with the same kind of things that most people I know are dealing with.
What dear old Dr. Freud would have called now just plain ordinary unhappiness, right?
Yes, ordinary everyday unhappiness, with a few laughs along the way.
Now, like many people who've dealt with the black dog of depression, you also have the most wonderful comic gift. I think we should set people straight on this in case they think all of these plays are kind of dark and hard to deal with. They're not at all. They're about very important, probably the most important subjects.
But you know, I can't write jokes. It's a real problem for me. I think occasionally the plays are funny, but I can't write jokes. I can't write comedy.
Well, yeah, but what about Daylight Saving?
Well, it is our comedy, but it's a set of real people in a real situation, and some of what they say is funny. But when I sit down I couldn't write stand-up comedy, I couldn't write situation comedy to save myself. And I so admire the people that can.
It's a very different skill, isn't
It's a
it?
fantastic skill. It's one that I don't begin to understand.
But when you say you don't do jokes, you do wit.
Well,
The Tony Sheldon character,
I
for
set up the
instance.
situation and they talk.
Oh, I see.
I don't think of myself as witty, and I don't think necessarily of the characters as being witty. They say what the situation evokes for them, and I mostly don't know when the audience are going to laugh.
Oh,
And that's
really?
true.
Don't you? Another question, though, of course, is are we going to get some more musicals?
Max Lambert and Gail Edwards and I collaborated on a piece which we workshopped at the Sydney Theatre Company, a piece called Miracle City, and we're eager to keep working on that. And to that end, we're going to Perth in August to work with the students at the Western Australian Academy on a new draft in the hope of getting it onto the stage sometime next year.
Oh, good, because they're fun. The musicals are.
Well, that's pretty dark, too.
Perhaps because they move at a certain pace. But I suppose that's what life is, isn't it? I mean, you don't. It is light and dark.
I thought it was kind of interesting to write a musical about a marriage coming unstuck and somebody losing faith. I thought that was good.